Yo, what's going on, you guys? Your boy Devon Terrell in raw form, and welcome to an episode of Help Me Devon in the studio. This will be a new segment on the channel where I take you guys more in depth of the actual physical environment of the studio, i.e. equipment, acoustics, recording techniques, those types of things that'll help you before you even press play in your session. And today in this particular episode, I thought the first what would be absolutely perfect to show you is the equipment I use. I felt like that would be super dope. I see you guys ask for it all the time, so I'm listening. Yes. Okay. So first thing what I'll do is, as far as showing you what I use, is I'll go through it like a signal flow path. So basically, we'll do it in a sense of when I sing into the mic, how does everything travel? And that's how I'll explain my equipment, okay? Okay, so first things first is I like to use my microphone, my favorite microphone that I have in my disposal. I use the TLM 103, the Neumann TLM 103. Why did I purchase this microphone? One, I'm a big fan of the Neumann sound when it comes to microphones. I think they're extremely versatile. The microphone to me is the microphone that you can't go wrong. Neumann microphones, you just can't go wrong. I feel like you can get anything, you can get good quality vocals out of anything, out of any type of instrument, vocal, all kinds of things with their line as far as what they provide. This particular microphone, I liked a lot. Off the strength of, I seen that there was a slight bump in the 5K kilohertz range, which will usually give your vocal a little bit more brilliance, etc. When you're buying microphones, it's really important to, one, look at polar patterns and to look at the actual frequency response charts. Now that's really deep. I won't get too in depth about that, but next time you look at a microphone, check out its frequency response chart, and that'll tell you where it actually responds the most to as far as frequency. So if you're looking for a brighter microphone, then look for a microphone that has a bump in that section. That's a great way to actually go about buying a microphone. So the Neumann TLM 103, favorite mic as far as what I like to use for R&B vocals, even for rap. It just sounds amazing. It's literally, you could put this mic on anything, it'll sound great. I've seen it been used on guitars. I've seen it for overheads, which was really dope. It just has an overall nice top presence, that Neumann, honestly, that I hear a lot with the Neumann microphone. So Neumann microphone, TLM 103, love that microphone. By the way, I'm not being paid for all of this, any of this. So I'm genuinely just giving you the equipment that I absolutely adore and love. This is my vocal chain. Next thing we do is I have the cord that is feeding a preamp, okay? My cord is a Mogami cord. I'm a big fan of Mogami cords. They're extremely high quality XLR cords. And yes, that actually matters. A lot of times if you can get gold-plated cords, anything gold-plated is better. Gold is a better conductor than silver that you see, or those types of things. So I like to get gold. Anytime I see gold-plated conductors, as far as your plugs and stuff like that, like this, can you see this? Like this, I'll show you in another shot. If you have these gold-plated conductors like this, they're better. I'm just telling you right now, they're better conductors when it comes to it. They sound better to some people. All right, I have that feeding my preamp, and the preamp that I use is the Universal Audio Twinfinity 710. Why did I choose this preamp? Well, it's really simple reason why I chose this preamp. One, I love the sound of it. Two, I love how versatile this preamp is. This preamp is so underrated. This preamp can go from transistor to tube. And what does this mean? What is this knob right here that says transistor and tube? Basically, I can turn this preamp into a straight transistor preamp or a tube preamp. Now, I won't get too in depth as far as what those two things mean, but just think of it like this. I have a tube preamp and a regular solid state preamp all in one. And the sick thing about the Twinfinity is I can choose a blend between the two. So I can choose to say, well, I want half tube, half transistor, half solid state. And it's insane. When you have transistor preamps or solid state preamps, they're usually, for the most part, a little bit more transparent. As far as what I hear from my UA Twinfinity, I noticed that it's very transparent. Basically, it's just bright, cuts through, it makes it big and beefy as far as the sound, and that's it. Now, when I switch it to the tube setting, I notice it gets a lot warmer. Those S's start to become silkier, smoother. I notice I get a different tone. That's why you see it says tone blending. You can choose the blend that you want on it. It's my favorite preamp because I can be as versatile as I want. If I want a warmer guitar, I'll crank it more to the tube side. If I want a colder rap vocal that's a little bit more aggressive, I'll turn it more to the transistor side. You pick how you want the tone of the vocal to sound, and it's pretty self-explanatory. There's a gain, there is a level, as far as how much saturation you want on the tube. It's amazing. It's like a plug-in, but it's just outside, and it also has a high Z input, which is AKA for instruments that have a lower level that you want to bring in. So that's there. Now, coming out of my UA Twinfinity 710, I feed my A to D converters. Okay, now A to D stands for analog to digital. Basically, this is your audio interface, just to not go crazy with it. I feed my audio interface, AKA my A to D converters. The reason why I'm saying A to D converters is because literally there's two processes that happens within your audio interface. There is A to D and there is a D to A. Now, when you have when you're on a budget, usually you'll buy a piece that does both, but a lot of people will buy pieces that do it separate. Let's not get too deep into that. Just know that I'm going to explain all of that to you as far as my process. So from my preamp, I feed my A to D converters. Now, granted, I know what you're thinking. Well, your A to D converters or your audio interface has preamps on it already. Why do you have a preamp going out of this preamp going into this A to D converter? Well, sometimes, or a lot of times in audio, you would like to have equipment that does separate jobs. Usually when something has one job, and I'll be honest with you, when something usually has one job as far as equipment is concerned, it's usually really good at that one job. So when you try to use something like the onboard preamps of a piece, you may notice that there is a better preamp out there that you can use to bypass the preamps in your audio interface that will sound better. Now, this takes a lot of experimentation, etc., which took me a long time to get here as far as picking this one. But just know I am not using the actual onboard preamps of this A to D converter. I'm just using literally the A to D converter. Now, A to D stands for analog to digital, as you know. What is analog? Analog is something like your vocals. That's electrical energy that's coming into this microphone that's feeding this preamp. So it's all analog. This is analog. Now, your computer needs to understand this information. It needs to understand what is feeding. How am I going to read this? How does these ones and zeros get converted and changed? How does this acoustic energy, analog energy, get converted into something digital? Well, that's why you pay for good A to D converters, because the better your A to D converters are, the better it's going to represent and reproduce those frequencies and that energy that you put into that microphone. So my A to D converter that I use is one that I've had for a very long time. It's called an RME Fireface. I have the 400. There is an 800 version that has more channel strips. It's literally the same thing, but it has more channel strips as far as inputs and outputs and stuff like that. And I love this little box. It's a small little thing. People have walked into my studio and said, this is it that you record on, and I press play and they're blown away. This is an amazing piece. I love this piece. I swear by it. I heard it in the studio one time and I literally just fell in love with it. And so I got it. I've had it for about maybe 7 years now and I still haven't changed. And obviously equipment has probably gotten better and stuff, but this thing has just done such a great job for me. And all the music and all the stuff that you've heard on this channel has been mixed with these A to D converters and these D to A converters. I love this thing so much. I am looking at more stuff, but this thing is just boss. It's just amazing. So from my A to D converters, obviously now that it's converted it from analog to digital, it goes into your multi-track recorder or your computer. That's what it is. All your computer is a multi-track recorder. Think about it like back in the day, how it was in the old school days. So I know a lot of you make this joke on this channel about how many plugins I use and what Mac are you using to hold all these plugins. Well, I'm gonna blow your mind. This is a mid-2015 Mac that I've kept in great condition since mid-2015. This computer is 5 years old. Now I know what you're thinking. How is that possible? How are you able to run all those plugins while you're actually mixing and showing you tutorials? Well, guess what, guys? That's the power of knowing the plugins that you're using really, when I'm using these plugins, I'm using EQs and compressors. I'm not using a lot of plugins that take a lot of heavy DSP. That's why I tell you guys, don't be fooled by what you see as far as how many tracks are there. It's just EQs and compressors most of the time. And then the real heavy lifting stuff as far as DSP is concerned, digital signal processing, which that is what makes your computer stop and crack and make all those noises, because it can't handle all of that stuff. Your processor cannot handle all those processes. I use plugins that are very light on DSP, and I love plugins that are very light on DSP because that allows me to run them. So I have plugins that are very heavy on DSP, but I use them in moderation. I use them when I need to, etc. So this is a mid 2015 Mac that I'm using that is amazing, and I still have no issues, and I will be staying with this thing for a very long time. Now, you have your D to A. What is your D to A? Your D to A is your digital to analog, aka that's what's coming out of your speaker. So it's taking what is in this computer and spitting it back out to analog, to acoustic energy, to analog energy. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, your speakers. So realize that D to A is happening within my RME Fireface, the same piece that I was telling you about. It does both. The D to A is feeding these speakers, and the speakers that I use is the Yamaha HS80s. Excuse me, I use the HS5s. I want the HS80s. And basically the reason why I picked these speakers is because I love the way they sounded. I heard them at a friend's place, and what these speakers provide is they're a little brighter than the average speakers in my opinion. I like the low mid energy that it has, but these things really shine to me in the top end area. And I know what you're thinking, you know, when it comes to top end, you have to be very careful when it comes to your mixing. And the reason why, as soon as I heard the speakers, I was like, these are bright speakers. I like them because with bright speakers, that's gonna stop me from mixing so bright on duller speakers. So for me, I know one of my mixing problems was, you know, I would mix really brightly and I needed speakers that were already bright. So to stop me from feeling like I need to add so much brightness. See, when it comes to monitors, I don't want you to get caught up on how expensive things are. I want you to get caught up on what or how you listen. How do you react to music? And these speakers translate for me personally really, really well. I get that high end that I like as far as the brightness and stuff like that. And it kind of tells me to back off. I know when to back off. I know exactly how much to put in these speakers. These speakers sound rich in the high end section. So I'm very fond of these speakers in the high end section. Now, I also do have a sub, and the sub that I have is the KRK 10. I think it's the 10S if I'm not mistaken. It's the KRK 10-inch subwoofer. This is an amazing, amazing subwoofer. I like the subwoofer a lot. Heard it in various studios. When it comes to hip hop mixes and stuff like that, this thing is incredible. I know Adam has some great subs. A lot of companies have great subs, but I like this particular sub. 10-inch sub. It's a big, big sub. And what I do is, I don't usually use this sub much. I literally go back and forth just to reference because I want to know how it'll sound in a car or someone that has 10-inch subs. And I think that having a sub is probably one of the most important things to have in your studio. Even if it's something small, doesn't have to be big, but you need some type of sub so that you can hear some of that information, because these speakers right here cannot reproduce that information. These are 5-inch cones. These things are not big enough to reproduce that low end. So I have that big sub down there that I pop back and forth to let me hear what's happening at the bottom. Because a lot of people will keep cranking the bass on the bottom and think it sounds great, taking the car, I'm like, whoa, what is happening? And you destroyed your headroom. Your mix is actually gonna be quieter because you're boosting so much of that bottom end. So important to have a sub to reference back and forth. Don't mix in the sub all day. It will destroy you. Just go back and forth and mix in the sub when you need to. Check it just to make sure, okay, let me check my low end. Boom. Okay. Now, speaking of that, as far as how these speakers and volume is controlled, is a control station or a control unit or a control surface or whatever you want to call it. All this thing does is controls volume. And I have the PreSonus monitor station version 2. I like this a lot. Version 1 was a big hit in studios. I've seen it dang near in every studio, but I like this one in particular. PreSonus makes a great monitor station. And long story, all this does is controls my levels. So all I do is I can pop my headphones right at the top right here and control this individually as far as what is coming through those headphones. Say for instance, I'm sitting here and I have an artist that is in this booth right here chilling out. I can literally control his headphones here and the other person's headphones there. So I'm a big fan of the PreSonus monitor station. Has a great sound. By the way, pick a good monitor station or control surface or control station for your music in your studio, because these things can bring down the quality. And I've noticed that with a lot of different ones. I won't say any names, but there are certain ones out there that will super bring down your quality, and it does change how it sounds. If you play the raw sound that's coming out of your D to A as opposed to the D to A feeding this, there is a difference in quality. And I've noticed that because these things have converters as well. A lot of people may not know that, but these monitor stations have converters as well. So don't skimp on your monitor station, because the way you're hearing it is probably worse if you buy like a really cheap one. I will not say any names. My last piece of equipment that I really didn't say anything about, it is my favorite piece of equipment. It is my baby. It is a piece that I finally have been getting into buying more outboard gear. I think it's really important. I'll tell you about it later. But this piece right here that I got is called, and please don't get discouraged when you look up this piece. It's called the Neve Portico 2 Master Bus Processor. This thing right here changed the way I master my records. And I haven't really showed you guys much tutorials on it because I don't want to discourage you when I teach you about this piece. Now, all this piece is a master bus processor. I was mastering my own records and I needed analog. I needed something analog. Like it's very hard, or I really don't want to get too in depth on why or how important it is to have analog equipment when you're mastering. That's the one thing I can really say you should really invest in, is a mastering bus processor, some type of mastering bus processor, because the volume that you'll get in a digital domain I can get so much more volume out of my analog domain without limiting. I have literally stopped using limiters on my masters, and that's something I'll teach you guys about later on. For now, keep doing what you're doing. It's okay. But this has a beautiful sound. It literally, I run everything through it. I run pads through it. I run vocals through. I run all kinds of things through this thing just to get some real analog, some true analog saturation. It has this silk red button that has like this boost in the low mids and makes it more rugged and aggressive. And then it has this blue silk button where basically it just feels a lot more smoother and so silky. It's beautiful. It just has a tone to it. Then it has this EQ section over here that is for width and depth, that lets me add more imaging or change the image of it. I can add more low mids or low frequencies, or I can go straight to the high mids and boost just that. Incredible. Has a built-in compressor inside of it, has a built-in limiter. It's a master bus processor. This thing is for mastering. I won't get too in depth on it. Maybe one day I'll give a review if you guys care, and we'll figure it out. But guys, that's basically the tour of my equipment. I am so glad to finally invite you guys in and let you see what I actually have as far as how I record these vocals and how I get what I get out of my equipment, and a little bit of the ideology as far as why I purchase these things. Next time, what I'll do is I'll show you guys the actual studio as far as the room is concerned, why all of these pieces are strategically placed like this, and that's called acoustics. I am not an acoustician, but I will show you guys some techniques that anyone can use to actually figure out how to actually treat a room. So that was the first episode of In the Studio. Make sure you comment, like, subscribe. Let me know if this helped. Let me know if you guys have any question about getting equipment. I'd love to come up with some lists for you guys. We'll figure that out. And yeah, if you have any questions about any equipment here, just let me know and feel free. You know all the names. I'll provide it in the description below. Make sure you head on over to helpmedevon.info to keep this channel alive and support. There's templates, all kinds of things on that channel, on that website for you to purchase, etc., and to get some extra help and even mix and mastering services. So hope that was helpful, and follow us on the Instagram. Make sure you comment, like, subscribe, and yeah, welcome to my studio, guys. I hope you like this. Until next time.